I'm way overdue on doing up a couple of Hitachi boomboxes for a friend. So I'm going to do two in one video. I think the bulk of this is just going to be basic service. First up, we've got a TRK-5190E, which is quite an interesting looking model. Interesting looking and feeling actually. I find little tactile things like the handle has got like a little click that keeps it up or down. The dials and switches are quite interesting on this. We've got these big sort of oversized sliders with a little indicator, and these little sort of knobs with a skirt on. What this really sort of reminds me of is ham radio equipment. It's got that really sort of late 70s detail on it. Unusually, we've got like a black painted aluminium faceplate here with what I think are fake like screws in there. I suppose as you move on to the 80s ones, it may be more common for these to be the sort of the brushed bare aluminium, but we've gone with like a black paint or anodized maybe over the top, then the silk screen over the top. So yeah, there's something that feels very sort of ham radio gear about this. It's very sort of certain moment in time. I quite like the little Hitachi badge down at the bottom. It's got very similar speaker grills to an earlier model I'll put in a box below that I did some work on. Doesn't have soft eject, so it's fairly sort of thin and simple on the tape door, but it's quite satisfying when it closes. There's a lot of muck in there. I think if I remember right, I was told that yeah, these basically work. I think they're basically all complete. The antenna's all there and original and straight. That seems fine. I don't believe there's any major damage. There's just, I think, muck to these, but I'm going to open them up on camera anyway. Again, kind of that very specific time, we've got things like the chrome tape selector button. We've got automatic or manual record level with individual controls for left or right. Mixing input, you can turn on and off for a mix mic, which can connect to one of the sockets on the side. We've got things like the DIN socket. The beat cut switch is actually labelled bias on this one. That actually feels a little bit loose, that board. I wonder if there's something missing there, or is that just the way it is? I'm not sure. We've got external speaker outputs. So yeah, for a sort of compact machine, it's quite nicely featured. I expect the belts will be knackered in this. Original sponges there, and that's actually not too bad. Get the little ribbon for pulling the back ones out. It's dusty. Yeah, there's been some battery outgassing or something there because the springs are a little bit green, but nothing massively untoward. Very crackly. Obviously I haven't got the antenna out. Well, the radio is definitely picking something up. That sounds like it probably got quite a good sound. So one thing I'm noticing immediately is that the balance control isn't actually shifting the balance. It's really sketchy. The mono stereo switch is dropping speakers out here and there, so I imagine all the pots will want doing. The tone control's got an enormous range on it. Yeah, so that's in there fine. The volume control fairly scratchy. Let's pop it on tape. Let's see if I can find something that's not particularly valuable. Fast forward isn't working, and it was very difficult to get down. Let's see. Yeah, so fast forward and rewind are not working. Play's not working either, so the tape deck doesn't work at all on this. It feels really gummy and jammed up. It's getting a little better with use, but yeah, it feels really gummed up. So it's probably just full of muck, and yes, I imagine the belts will want doing. I think it's the other one, the tape deck does actually work, but we'll get to that. Right, let's go. Got a short screw in that top hole there. We've got two on the sides. So we've got longer screws on the sides. So as usual with Hitachis, I am seeing wiring inside. So looks like we've got a green wire on a loose handle. I'm going to remove that straight away. I'm not tempted to lift on it. So I can see a green wire just in there that's coming from the antenna. So that's on a little plug. That is labelled green GRN on the power supply, on the circuit board. And then down at the bottom we've got a black and a red wire for the power coming from the transformer. And lots of dust bunnies. There we go. We've got big linkages here. It looks like we've had some sort of foam on the switches. I'm noticing there's two little points on the back of the case here, which that's the screws falling out, where they must sort of rest against to stabilise them, and this foam looks a bit gummy and horrible. So yeah, everything wants a good clean first of all. Got got to be aware of a couple of capacitors across here that are sort of bodged in from this board to the main board. Be careful I don't do anything with them. Yeah, I think first thing is get the Hoover. A really big leaf switch contact as well on the edge of the DIN connector. I've never seen anything like that before. See a Sanyo chip. We've got Sanyo amplifiers and Sanyo chip for one of the radio circuits, and then we've got a Panasonic chip down here. So probably one of them is FM, one is AM, or one may be, for instance, a multiplex decoder for the FM stereo. But yeah, it looks like a fairly sort of concise tuner section there. Interesting, as I say, it's across two boards. That looks like the section for the power amplifier, and some of this I'm going to imagine will be to do with preamp and the tape deck mechanism. So let's get the Hoover. Right, that's a bit better to handle for a start. Something on my hand there, that may be melty belty. Yeah, I'm probably going to find something in there perhaps. There's still some crap under there that I've got to get to, but I think I've actually got to charge my Hoover up a bit. Yeah, that's a start. So I'm going to wash this off my hands. I think we will look at getting this board out and see what we can find at the tape transport. So it looks like we've got these to remove, which just slide out. They are slightly different sizes. The band selector is a little bit smaller. The function selector is a little bit taller. So they just slot out. There's a black screw down here that goes into a plastic frame that I think is also removable at the bottom, but I'm going to remove it here in this corner. And I think there's some sort of tuner assembly going on here. Oh, there's another black screw hiding there, just below where the green wire connects. And is that one a little bit longer? It might be. If I can get it out with the wiring in the way. Yes, so there's a black screw there that's actually much longer. It's about the same length as the case screws almost, that's there. One here. That again is a long one. I'm not certain what this is for. There's a big spring. It's not part of the band switch is just a switch, so I think it's something to do with the tuning. And that clip. Oh, there's another screw hiding down here. It's again between the wires. That's a short one. Ah, that screw there, I'll leave it in that bracket, just removes a cover. It's now looking to me like every knob's going to have to come off this. So I'm missing another screw. There's a screw hiding there. Okay, so another black screw just in the middle there, another short one, which has just gone on the floor. So it's looking like the chassis and this board wants to go that way. So I think this spring, I'm not sure what that's for, but I think there's a little plastic stopper there and then a metal bracket. I think I have to remove that. It feels like it. I'll remove that. There's a lot more movement there. So maybe if I tap it this way, I also should, I think, loosen these tie wraps here. There's some reusable tie wraps. So that one's around the bit at the bottom, and then there's another one hiding under here. There's a bit more freedom. So it's looking like this yellow and blue wire here need to be undone. So they seem to be connected to something at the back of the tape deck. It might be a leaf switch. Aha, here we go. This one was a bit of a puzzle. So we've got some more wiring. There's quite a lot of wiring as well, I'm noticing, that's soldered in. So I need to get these out of this board gap. So I think there's a few more to unplug here. So we've got a orange wire that comes up here that's marked P23, a brown wire that's marked P31 just next to it. Then there's a red wire there that looks loose enough. There is a blue wire there that confusingly is marked P22, is marked black, but it's actually blue. And the rest, I think, feel a bit tighter, look to be soldered in. So, but that's, oh, there we go. Now we're talking. I've got some wiring here that I think belongs to the microphone. There's a microphone down there. We've got stereo mics on this. Again, it's one of these little tie wraps, and I've got two black wires, a red wire and a white wire. So I think the two black wires, looking at that, they'll be the returns or the grounds for the mic, so they should be interchangeable. They should be on the same ground. And then we've got white and red, and again one of these tie wrap things that we'll have to remove. This one's a bit more of a puzzle, definitely. Aha, okay. Get that wire off. There we go. And yes, that's looking very familiar. So yeah, it looks like motor belt has melted, and yeah, the pulley belt there is gone as well. So the only belt I can see that's left and isn't sticky is a counter belt way down there. Right, let's do some more hoovering off camera. Right, I notice on my monitor the camera's picking up some sort of weird colours here, and it's just in the zinc coating that's on this little bracket here. It's not exactly like that in real life. I think it's just the reflection. But anyway, this is glove job. It's the usual job. I've got to remove all this melted belt. I might have to look for a service manual on this one, because I'm not certain of the belt orientation, because that was turned round that way with a bit of belt on it. I think this might be a single belt for the main functions, and then of course the counter belt. I can only see one pulley on the flywheel, and I think they're all on the same level. So I'm going to guess the belt goes like this. I don't think it goes around the outside, even though that was turned around there. I'm not convinced it goes around the outside, because yeah, it wouldn't clear that. It can't do. I think that is the path it's going to take. And I do think it's one belt. I will have a look for a belt kit to see if one's available that fits this. I'm not going to fit a belt kit to this. I'm going to look through my spares and see if I've got anything to fit, being as it only seems to be maybe one belt and the counter belt. Oh yeah, that's horrible. I'm going to have to scrape that out first. Yeah, being as it only seems to be maybe one dry belt and one counter belt. I'll address at this point actually, because I get asked a lot, do you do them for other people? I do, as in, do you do them for viewers for, you know, a paid job? I do, but it's not my main job. It's a sideline, really, a sideline to my main business, and my main business takes up a lot of my time. It took nearly 15 hours of a working day yesterday, for example. as I'm recording this. So quite often I can be backlogged, and I'm terrible at saying yes to too many things, and these have been sat waiting patiently on my shelf for months. So it can take me a long time before I am able to get to something, which is why I try not to fall too much into that trap of, oh, I'm not in a rush for it, because then I just end up with a house full of other people's things. I don't generally do jobs for people outside of the UK because especially with the sort of current political situations as well, or should I say sort of politically fueled situations with worldwide logistics, it's just too much to deal with. Also, people commented and said, you know, thank you very much for the video, it helped me fix mine, which is the whole point, the whole reason for doing it. I'm not trying to become a YouTube celebrity. I'm really not interested in playing that game, less than I've ever been. I'm just trying to give something back, as I've frequently said. From everything that I've learnt from these communities online, and especially people putting stuff on YouTube, my way of giving back is just to share what I'm doing, to hope that it's going to be of use to someone else. And if someone sees it and says, can I pay you to do a job for me, then obviously that's beneficial to me, because it allows me to, like everyone else, pay for a living, and then also, you know, pay for a few tools and things that again all fold back into the work that I do in a technical capacity. I think I'm going to have to remove this plate and probably take this out because it's just too messy. So that just comes out. Let's put that screw at the side of it. There's very likely, will that go down far enough? Very likely a little washer on the opposite side of this, holding this down. I'll have to put one of the gloves off. I might just be able to move it out of the way enough just to remove it. There we go. That's a bit more like it. So this took the ultrasonic cleaner and a little glass jar with a little bit of acetone in it. Don't do this at home. Don't go vaporizing acetone if you can help it, and don't blame me if you burn your house down. Try and do it outside or open a window if you can, if you absolutely must, and absolutely do not pour acetone directly into an ultrasonic cleaner. This was in a glass jar, a very shallow glass jar. It was only a shallow amount of it, just to cover the bottom of the pulleys. But yeah, that's the motor pulley. That comes off really easily because it's got two little set screws. So yeah, you don't have to pull on that or anything, it just slips off really easily. I wish more motors were like that, to be honest. Yeah, that's way better. So I'll drop a drop of oil on that. Alright, after a bit of a break, I've found a belt that fits. Obviously I've put the flywheel back in and I've put the pulley back on the motor. Put a tiny bit of oil, just a drop of oil in the motor bearing, and just a tiny drop of oil on the shaft of the capstan, so I'll be cleaning that from the other side before we finalise everything. I don't know the size of that belt because it was just out of one of those random grab bags, so it's not going to be the best belt in the world, but it's not the worst either. It seems alright. If I can find an actual size or a reference to a kit or anything, as I mentioned earlier, I will put it in the description below, and I'll try and put something in a box on the screen at this point. I'm just going to put this little thrust plate back on the back, and I'm going to put a little bit of Molykote grease just on the plastic, because it did have just a little bit of grease in there, and as it was old stuff, I cleaned it off with isopropyl, so I'm going to put dab on there just to refit this. Which way did it go? It was that way, wasn't it? That's it, and then that's the screw. Seems so far to be quite a nicely made mechanism, and also, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm seeing 6s a lot around the components and in some of the markings, so I think this is likely a 1976 build. I found out that these were quite closely partnered with the 5280 that I repaired in that earlier video. That was the one I was trying to think of. I've actually found a picture of the two of them, like a German promo of the two of them together, and I've found reference of this being 1976 to 1978, so I think this was probably built around 76. Yeah, that all seems fine. So I'm pretty sure I've got that belt path right, because with the kind of casing around the motor there, as I said earlier, it definitely can't come this way because this is in the way, so it follows that guide. And I believe this one, this clutch here, will likely be the take-up clutch because it's a bit softer, and then this one, which is a bit firmer, will be the winding clutch. So it's even got a proper winding clutch in it, which is nice. They feel all right. As I say, it seems to be quite a nicely put together mechanism, and overall it just seems quite good quality. That's the only bit that I could critique, was that corner of the board that goes here, where it's not particularly well affixed, where the connectors are, so it flexes the board a little bit. Could have done with just one more screw somewhere in this area, I think. But yeah, overall so far seems all right. So I think I'm going to take the mechanism out, because I want to do this counterbelt. I think there's just 4 screws. Where did I spot them? One there, one there, one there, one there, and I think there's one hidden away somewhere else, just down there with these white wires hiding. There's 4 screws that should just lift the mechanism out and forwards, because I know there's going to be lots of muck underneath there in the actual tape well, and I think I need to get to the front to get this raggedy horrible counterbelt out. And I have cleaned some old grease off the sliding mechanism, and I will be re-greasing all of that before it fully goes back together. Noticing as well, there's a couple of cable retainers. There's actually a few. There's one here, one here. There's one hidden away down here. Might have to undo a couple of those when I take this out. Let's see. I must have stuck my head under the camera there as it went completely out of focus. Right, yeah, that gives us just enough to tip it over. There's quite a lot of dust and muck in there, so I'm going to do the hoovering again. There's a counterbelt, so that has to go through that little white plastic gap there. Take that out. It's misshapen, but it's actually, you know, it's not sticky or melting or anything. I don't know why that is. Counterbelts always seem to survive, but mechanism belts just either snap and just dry out, or just turn to goop. I don't think I've ever done a counterbelt. I can't recall a counterbelt, maybe there is one somewhere, where I've had to clean it out as a melted mess. From what I can recall, every counterbelt I've ever done is just kind of perished, but always comes off fine. Why is that? I wonder if it's something to do with oils or metals, because generally counters don't use counter pulleys, and tape pulleys don't generally use sort of metal pulleys, and they are rarely around any kind of greased or oiled parts. Is it something to do with that? It's weird, but they always just, yeah, they're always a bit stretched and old, but they just come off no problem. How odd. I just realised when digging around, another belt has surfaced that was just flopping down the side here, and a little white pulley. I think there's one of two possibilities here. There's a pulley here that seems to be connected to this little white lever. You'll see it moves. That's an auto stop detector. So one or two possibilities. Either this random belt was between the take-up pulley and that pulley there. It fits, but it's tight, so it wouldn't have fallen off. And looking at its shape, which is quite sort of tightly bent at the top, I'm not so sure. Other possibility is this little pulley went on the capstan. It went right down to the bottom, and that belt went like that. Maybe more possible. I think I'm going to have to try and find a service manual to try and confirm that, because yeah, that floating around and I can't find anywhere else where that must have gone. The counterbelt is obviously on the supply pulley, because that goes down, it goes through that bit what we took off earlier. So it kind of is a 3-belt machine, but not in the way I expected. So I'm going to see if I can find any evidence of where this thing should go, because it does feel like that maybe does go, it does fit, and maybe it does go right down to the bottom like that. And this small belt is very, very loose. If it was incredibly loose, but I can't see anywhere else. I don't think it went like that. Definitely didn't go like that. I think I've figured it out. What makes more sense is that pulley did go on the capstan. It goes to there. Of course, it doesn't go to the take-up, because it's not going to work, is it? The take-up's got to have its own clutch, which is driven from the back. Going by the shape again of that belt, it definitely got a tight bend in it, like it came from a small pulley. When I pulled the capstan out, which I shouldn't really have done, I don't recommend doing that. I always check from the front before you do it. I should have got the service manual really. I'm just trying to sort of get this one done kind of quickly, but it makes sense that it would drive that, and if this isn't moving it would stop it. I think that's where it's come from. So again, that belt's not bad, but a bit tired. So I need a small belt for that and a counter belt. I am going to check, but I think that's how it went. I've found the service manual on Internet Archive, and I've found a stereo to go thread as well on this model that shows that this belt is in the right place. I've fitted, one that fits, and I've fitted a counter belt as well that seems to fit all right. On that thread there were belt sizes that showed the original belts that have been measured out, and somebody put an order in for some, so I will copy what was on there and I'll put it in a little box again here. Okay, I think that's about as much cleaning inside and greasing and oiling and whatnot as I can do. Of course, all the new belts are on. The little leaf switch here has been cleaned. The heads and the pinch roller have been cleaned. Strangely, the head and the pinch roller were filthy, and the erase head as well. They had to be cleaned and polished, and the pinch roller had to be cleaned with the usual rubber roller restorer, and that's actually come up fine. All the rubber tires and everything on the front was absolutely fine. The capstan itself was spotless. It's unusual to find like really filthy heads and pinch roller, but the capstan being absolutely spotless. But there we go. So yeah, I've screwed the deck back in. I've cleaned, as I say, as much of this out as I think I can. I've now got to try and finagle this board kind of back into place. I think before I do that, I'm going to give all the controls and are there any switches on the top here? I think it's all just, apart from on the very front, but all these pots on the top, I'm going to give them a little shot of cleaner just to see if that maybe fixes our balance issue for a start, and a scratchy volume control, because they're each quite easy to access while it's out like this. So just going to give these a little bit, there's just a little bit of access to the contacts underneath. This record play switch is going to be the difficult one, because it's difficult to get to the contacts on that. We'll just have to see how it goes. At least it's accessible from the top of the board when it's back in, so it's not buried. In the process of getting the board back in, one warning: there's an infuriating issue where the microphone wire for the right microphone, the red and black wire, there's little sort of finger clips that the wire is supposed to sort of sit in against the panel, so it's supposed to be sort of retained there, and they don't stay in. They just flop about, they just get in the way, they're infuriating. I think if, again, a bit more time to sort of mess with this, then I would have probably glued that in place not with super glue or anything, but maybe just like a little bit of silicone glue or something, just a little bit, just to hold it there, because they tend to get in the way of all the pot stems when you're trying to get, you know, the volume and balance and tone pot and everything through. And then these buttons here, and then they try to get in they try to drape over the top of the tape transport buttons, so they're really annoying. You've got to make sure you kind of fish them back through and connect them back up. I'm not going to put any of the wire ties or anything back on yet. I'm just getting the basics back together. Also, make sure that the little gear that's on the back of the tuning capacitor here, it's got to mesh with the one that's on the little pulley that's on this plastic piece. So if this is not quite going down, just make sure that you've got that sort of seated properly, and don't be tempted to move the tuning dial position until you've got it back together, because if you move it and then put the board back in, the dial won't be calibrated to the right position anymore, it'll be offset. So yeah, I'm going to put this little spring bit back in and this little metal piece, and then these screws on the top I didn't actually need to remove because they connect to the board to the metal chassis, which we ended up removing in all in one piece. So these sort of dome headed screws that were in there can all go back in and stay back in. I'm going to hook up my bench power supply at 9 volts. This is a 9 volt machine, so the points where the power connects from the transformer, I'm going to use those. Also, one thing, make sure that the mono stereo switch does slot in to this little top button properly, so make sure they're in the same position, and as the board pushes forwards it goes back into there. These all seem fine. Function selectors, of course, I haven't hooked up yet because they have those black stem pieces, that linkage pieces that connect them up, so we could put those back on actually. Without the back panel on, they will tend to lift up, so just have to be wary of that. Put on the power. Let's have a look. Yep, take up spool is moving. Yep, got good tension on there. Fast forward works. Rewind works. The auto stop works, so that belt's fine. Feel the pinch roller going. Pause works much better after a grease. Right, let's put in a sacrificial tape. Still a bit. It works. Okay, it's running. It's one of my tapes, one of my tracks on, so no copyright issues. I did test it just with a scrapper tape first that got copyrighted music on, so I didn't catch the first run of it, but it's going. But the balance control is still kind of iffy, and there's not a lot of fast forward torque. In fact, there's not actually enough to operate the cue. It just stops. Rewind and review are fantastic, but fast forward in sort of ordinary mode is not quite enough to get all the way through a C90 tape. So I wonder if that might be excuse me, one of the rubber rollers or so. So I think I might end up having to go back in this. I always hope that, you know, these are going to be quick and, oh yeah, we'll just give this one a clean up and sure it's going to be fine. And now I feel a bit like I've been rushing it because yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go back into it. I think it's worth it. I'm actually quite impressed with this, like the feel and everything, the controls. Just thinking like the volume control alone's got like 3 materials going on there, probably 4, because we've got the plastic sensor, we've got a metal clip, we've got rubber around the outside, and then this clear screen printed skirt on the bottom. Like I mentioned earlier, there's something that feels very sort of ham radio about that, and 1977, 1976 sort of time just feels perfect for that. But everything's got a really nice feel on it. All the pots and everything are already solid metal pots. Even the big sort of plastic switches still feel very positive. The push buttons all feel fine. The mono stereo switch is working fine. I haven't fully hooked up an antenna or anything to test the radio yet, but I was able to pick up medium wave at least, because obviously it uses the rod antenna. And I'm surrounded by all the equipment on the bench that will interfere with it, so I'm never good for a radio test. Been trying to get some of the muck out of the glue along this top edge here. That needs a little bit more work, probably with a brush, to sort of get some of that out. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to go back in it. I'm going to have this tape door off to clean out the muck inside there, and see if I can find out why we've got that low torque on the fast forward. It's a little bit awkward with this machine because you've kind of got to put it back together to test it. I can't really test the tape transport too easily without it all being sort of back together, so I can only really find out by getting to this stage. But I do think it's worth spending that time when I've got a moment, when I come back, to sort this out properly. It's back in pieces again. I've gone back in to have a look at this issue with the fast forward, and I'm going to look at the balance pot as well. If you can see this white wheel in the middle, this tyre was over the top of it, and this is the problem. I know I said earlier, oh, I'm not going to buy any parts for this, I'm not going to mess about, but I've ended up ordering one of these tyres. I've attempted to sand it with an emery board. I've attempted to use the rubber roller restorer. If I look closely, there are fine cracks in this. I mean, it's a nearly 50-year-old piece of rubber. It's done for. I've never had success in trying to revive one that is too far gone. The rubber roller restorer stuff is good for cleaning them, and it's good for restoring one that's already okay, but this is the issue. How it works is this white pulley in the middle with the tyre around it can pivot to either pressing against the supply hub, so it will work in rewind. The supply hub edge is plastic, and then of course you've got this rubber tyre on the white pulley. In fast forward, it will press forwards, and it will press against, well, it won't press forward, sorry, it will actually have this wheel pressed against it, this plastic wheel, which will transfer the movement from the white pulley to there, to the take-up pulley, take-up hub, which has got a rubber tyre around it as well. That same rubber tyre is pressed against by this little brass pulley here, which does the take-up in play. The rubber on this is actually not bad. It's good enough certainly for working in play, and I'd say it's better than, it feels better than the rubber on this. I've cleaned that with the same stuff, with the roller restorer, and that's functioning fine in play. There's loads of torque, but there's no torque in fast forward because this little plastic pulley has to get used, and this is just no good. So I found one on eBay. They're the usual thing, they're not ever so cheap. It was about 7 or 8 quid. But I might as well do it. As I say, it's pointless trying to bolt it all back together with a part that's just not really working properly, considering I know that the owner uses these smaller machines quite often to zip through tapes to see if there's anything on them, because he does get batches of cassettes, and so the cue and review need to work really. So if the fast forward just doesn't work on one, and I've been in it and given it him back, charged him money for it, and just seems a bit pointless, I might as well, you know, replace that. So I'm going to do that. So when that arrives, obviously I'm going to fit that. So I want to have a look, let's pop that out of the way, at this balance pot. I think this balance pot is going to have to come out. It's this one. We'll reset the camera and see what we can do about this, because it looks like it unbolts from the top. Got to note that there's a capacitor between that end pin there and the body of this switch, so I'm going to flow some fresh solder on, and then I think I'm going to try the wick to get this out. Screws a little bit in the way. It's a bit too much there, I think. We'll have to go for the desolder pump. I can't actually do this, I don't think, without removing. Maybe both. How did they do this? Oh, how bizarre. That was obnoxiously difficult to remove, but I've got it. These four-legged pots, you can't easily just nip out and buy another one of these. It's got four legs because it's got this centre tap. It's unusual actually to see these on balanced pots in my experience. Someone else will probably prove me wrong. What I'm going to do on this is take the can off the back, because it is just a single gang pot, but yeah, having this extra tap means that we've got to go in this and clean it properly. So I'm going to go into this and see if I can properly clean the wiper and the track. So I'm going to tease these little wings off on the can. Note that you don't cut them off, you just loosen them. These snips are pretty good actually for getting underneath where they're folded. There we go. So there's a stopper in the back of the can, because that's what the little dent is for, because without it just goes round and round. Actually looks not too bad, but the wiper itself, I wonder if it was running off the end of the track a little bit. So annoyingly I can see that that is sort of pinned over on the end on a press, so it means I can't remove that. So I'm just going to have to get in there and try and clean this with a cotton bud, I think. Yeah, I think it's the wiper. There's a lot of crap on the wiper, because look at the colour changing. The wiper looks absolutely black. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to the conductive side, or rather the side that's pressed against the track. I'm not sure I'm going to do that unless I do it with a piece of paper. Perhaps, yeah, look at that. I can get this under the wiper. A bit of paper under the wiper, like that, and then soak it in the alcohol. Yeah, look at that. Alright, catch up. The two pots have been soldered back in, the brackets all back on. These two capacitors here, I think these are the tone capacitors. I've changed them because not only were they right in the firing line of trying to do these, I did notice before I even started, one of them had, I think I've got the old ones at the side here, one of them had got a bit of a mark on its jacket, as if it had been caught with an iron in the past, and yeah, it also, just the bottom of it just looked like it was going a bit, to be honest. So they're only little 1 microfarad caps, so I've got some of them laying around, so while I was there I've replaced those two. So I did test this just with a signal input on the scope, just to make sure it was all working all right. It seemed fine before I bolt it in. I've got the new rubber tyre for the fast forward rewind idler, so I'm going to put that in. So I'm going to move all this stuff back out of the way again. Certainly feels much better than the old one. So let's see if we can get this on. It's a bit of a tight gap on that side. They can often sort of twist when you first get them in, but so they sort of end up with a 45-degree edge, but once you sort of get them right in one point, just sort of nudge them round, they do slot squarely into the groove properly. And that's got it. So as that rolls around, it should sort of correct itself a little bit. Yeah, the torque feels much better there. It's actually really good there. The torque is correct to the point where I can actually feel the back clutch doing what the clutch should do. I've spoken about this before in repairing tape decks, that there are parts that are supposed to grip and parts that are supposed to clutch, and they shouldn't be doing each other's job. If it should grip, it should grip. If it should clutch, it should clutch. You don't want the wrong point slipping, and you don't want the clutch sticking either. But it's more common that something appears to work, but then you realise that a part that's supposed to grip is acting as a slipping clutch, and that's not what we want. Alright, it's back together. Obviously I've not got the back panel on. I'm going to wash that and leave that to dry and everything off camera. I've got to tidy up all the wiring looms and everything, put those little wraps back on. I've cleaned the handle and popped that back in, and yeah, just been doing a bit more cleaning and whatnot, testing the tape deck and everything. I can't play that because that's copyrighted material, but it sounded great on here. There is no speed adjustment on these, as there is on some of these Hitachis that use a similar motor, but the speed seemed fine. The alignment seems absolutely bang on. All I've had to do really with the tape path is clean it, and obviously, you know, sort the belts out and everything as I did, but I've had to do no alignment check or anything. It aligns fine, sounds great, mono stereo, don't hear any drift, sounds fine. It's really nice. It's everything that you kind of physically interact with on this is really nicely done. As I mentioned, the things like the little skirt with the numbers on, the rubber, the nilled rubber outer bit on the volume control, the little clicky retainer on the handle. The only thing that, I mean, bear in mind this is from 1976, the only thing that I think would have made it a little bit nicer is the eject, if it had had a soft eject, but not many of them did in 1976, so I think that's fair enough. Also a little bit surprised it doesn't have any kind of dial light, but again the dial's black, so it might not have lit up that well anyway. But yeah, for a sort of small, what I thought would have been a small sort of mid-range unit, everything that's tactile on it is really nicely done. I'm really impressed with the build quality on this. The fact that it's got like a dedicated belt for an auto stop mechanism, it's got individual left and right amplifier chips, lots about it. Just has a really nice feel to it and feels really nicely built. It goes nice and loud. I won't crank it now because it's a little bit late in the evening, but yeah, that's come up really nicely. As I say, I'll get that back panel on once it's all been washed, and crack on with the next one. But really really impressed with that. We'll come back to this one at the end. Oh, almost forgot to mention the fast forward and rewind. They now work fine. There's loads of torque on that now, so it's spot on. So the Q and review work fine. Pause works. The stop is nice and quiet. So the auto stop and everything works fine. All good, really. I think that'll do for now. That's come up really nice. It does have a few marks here and there. I mean, it's from 1976, that's fair enough. Remarkably good condition overall, otherwise. The back has had a little bit of the back to black, just to, after washing it, just to restore a bit of the oils in the plastic. I forgot about this, there is some strange damage in the corners of the front panel, where there's a little bit of the plastic that's chipped away. It's just left this little hole. The owner did mention that to me when he brought it in, and I'd actually forgotten about it, didn't spot it again until I put it back together. I might attempt to do some sort of little 3D printed plug or something for those, but I'll come back to that later. I'm umming and ahhing if it will work or if it will just look a bit silly. It's not really that noticeable, mainly because it's happened on both sides. I don't know how it's happened, but yeah, it's come dead nice, that. So all back together. I'll demo them fully at the end. I did manage to get the tape door off and clean inside there. That's all come up really cool, so I think we'll move on to the next one. I don't even know what model this is. What does it say on the back? It is a TRK-5190E. Quite a bit different to the other one. I'm guessing around about 1980. We've still got that kind of 70s style stereo badge at the top, but they've shrunk it way down. And then we've got the grids coming in the design scheme. So it feels very sort of forward looking to the 80s on this. This is not really in the same league, I'd say, as the other one. It feels a bit more plasticky. I think part of the reason is, I did notice when I was looking on this earlier, it's not Japanese made. This is out of the Singapore factory. I think the cream of the crop in their stuff was always out of the Japanese factory, and this is Singapore made. Nevertheless, we will still make it good. This one, I think, yeah, we do get the luxury of soft eject on this one, and I'm not sure what the heads are like. Oh, are there batteries in this? That just came on. I'm told this one works. That's why it's... Yeah, there's a rotting sponge on the back of the thing, and there are 4 Duracell D batteries which expired 2.5 years ago. Excellent. Amazingly, they don't show any signs of leaking yet, which is an achievement for Duracells. Okay, so this has got some power in it. Is there much tension? There's not masses of torque there. Yeah, there's not a great deal of torque on that. Rewind's better. Pulse seems to work. Okay, let's put scrap tape in it and just see what it does. Ugh. Scratchy control.
Supplements and bicentenary special editions and galas and t-shirts and every other kind of cultural hoopla. But the marketing men are also dreaming up other more improbable...
The telltale sound. Yeah, it's eating the tape. It's tuning the tape up. That's why you use scrap tapes. Yeah, it's probably that the capstan's mucky. The pinch roller doesn't feel great. Maybe you can get away with cleaning that, but the pinch roller's skewing the tape. Let's get those batteries out. Let's get it open. Oh, flipping out, actually. There are 8 D cells in it. Wow. Okay. Don't think the owner put those in. I'm not aware they put those in. Maybe they were in it when he bought it. Would explain the age. So 8 D cells. That's probably worth about as much as the boombox itself is worth. The price of D cells. Let's pop those aside and have a look. What we need to do to get in it looks like 1, 2, 3, 1 hiding in the battery compartment, 4, 5, 6. The play button. Something's going on with the play button at the top. It's kind of all, yeah, wobbling around. It's kind of all off axis. It sort of half sinks down, so maybe a piece of the plastic has snapped on that. So I need to have a look into that. I'm guessing that all these switches will pull off. They'll feel horrible. That needs dealing with. This has got quite a different feel in how it comes apart to the others. You'd expect a seam kind of around here on the others I've worked on so far, but this is further up. It's here where the join is. So I wonder if any of the controls have to come off first. Yeah, I can see the back panel's moving, but the tuner knob isn't, so I think the controls have to come out. Alright, the camera actually stopped when I was getting these off. That one seems to have come loose by itself. All these other switches, I don't recommend doing this, and if you have to do it with utmost care. To get a couple of small screwdrivers under, just very carefully try and lever them, and they went with the right pop. In fact, one of them launched across the room because they're glued. Yeah, they're kind of glued onto the top of sort of ordinary switch tops. I don't like that. Yeah, Again, those sort of telltale things that you go, yeah, this is not built quite to the standard that the others are. Let's tip it up and see what we're dealing with. There are wires. I can feel wires inside. Yep, got a black and a red wire. And I can feel a white wire that's marked P104. That's for the antenna. And then we've got a red and black wire for the power. The usual thing of having the transformer in the back panel. So that's those two. I think that's it. Yeah, so again, I'm going to keep saying this. Signs of a much cheaper construction. We've got, there go the screws. We've got more of a sort of box on the back, and the front panel, you can just sort of see by the quality of the moulding, it's not quite the same. So I can see down into the mechanism. It's got quite a bit smaller flywheel. There's a flat belt I can see in there. And the play button, yeah, it looks like there's a piece of plastic. There we go, piece of plastic that's broken. It's shattered. There's a piece there. This is greasy, so that will obviously have to be cleaned before I can make any attempt to glue that. But that will be difficult to do because it's sort of right in the tension of the metal inside that will be pushing against that. Not sure. We will deal with that later. Big sliders on the top, but at least they're very easy to access. In fact, they're actually on a board that slides out by the looks of it. This is kind of bizarre. What's going on here and here? So there are extra little circuit boards that are joined by soldered steel wires, and they're sort of folded over. There's these slots cut into the circuit board to sort of guide the wire. That's quite strange, seeing anything like that. But again, they're standard sort of switches, so they will clean up okay. Have to be careful of the tuning dial in the front. Looks like, yeah, just get that one board out. So there's 1, 2, 3 down there. Must be something in this corner. I'll see at least 3 screws. We've got an NEC chip down here, buried in the dust. Get something to wipe that with. For the amplifier, there we go. UPC 1277H, and I've got a Hitachi chip there, which is probably for the tuner. That's the record play switch. There's an unpopulated socket there. Wonder what that was for. Maybe a mic input or something. There's a couple of resistors and a switching contact. It's the next day, and I unexpectedly finished work a little bit early today, so I'm going to spend a bit more time on this. I think we're going to get this board out, and I'm also going to take all these controls and get them through the ultrasonic cleaner. Noticing that one actually has lost a little bit of its chrome plating, so we'll clean it, see what it looks like, hoping that none of the others do. I might end up painting it and clear coating it if I think it can look any better. The little one from the I think it was from the tuner waveband, wasn't it? The one that was sideways in the back case does actually come out of the back case if you slide it part of the way. So I took that out. That one's clean because I actually washed the back of the case out last night. A lot of kind of yellow gunk came off it. It doesn't have any smell of cigarettes, but it was also, well, it was almost like the sort of colour of it looked like sort of cigarettes are, but absolutely no smell of that at all. Maybe it's just really dirty. It does now shift some stuff, the cleaner that I use, which happens to be that, by the way, not a sponsor, but that stuff I've found really good for getting off years and years of baked in mess. So try and suss this out. I can see a lot of these little wire ties and then a bigger one there, the typical sort of Hitachi ones. I'm just really looking around to see where screws are. So there's one down here. I think I counted 3 last night. I think these wraps might have to be cut. I don't think they're actually reusable. Right. We've got one here. One here. I'll have to replace these with tie wraps. One here. They go through holes in the board. In fact, that one's just broken. So we need small tie wraps to get through points in the board on a couple of these, and then this one is one of the reusable ones again. Goes through a little hole in the board there. Ah, one there. Screw missing right in front of me. Quite nice actually, I'm noticing on this board. All the adjustments and even some of the chips are actually labelled. So for instance, that Hitachi chip there shows it's the multiplex chip for the FM stereo. We've got a multiplex adjustment pot there, so that's probably to tune in the 19 kilohertz pilot. All the little transformers here, like the IF for the FM, the IF for the FM are all labelled. I think there's FM discriminator there, so when you're going through doing the calibration on the radio, which I never really do because I don't really have the equipment for calibrating radio tuners, and I don't live in a very good area for testing radio anyway. If it works, it works. Apart from the sort of FM stereo and obvious things we can adjust on the oscilloscope, that sort of thing, I don't really have the generators and things, unfortunately, to do all the FM and even some AM stuff, and it's very expensive. But yeah, it's nice that it's sort of labelled up like that. A lot of these wiring points are soldered in. In fact, pretty much everything that's still attached, I think, is soldered in. I don't see any more that's sort of unpluggable. So I'm just going to have to be careful with this. I think this should slide out. Let's have a look. Yes. So these should slide forwards, that's it. Hopefully we can lift this board away with all this wiring. Just down underneath, just down here, there's another one of these reusable, unreusable, disposable I should say, tie wraps, and it's tied around a little hole in the metal framework of the tape transport. So that, let's give us a little more. The speakers, figure out the best way to go with this. Even the speakers are soldered in. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to cut any wires, but I don't know, I feel like I might have to. So we've got wires going to the headphone socket, well that could come out. There's a ground wire here. The wires to the speaker are kind of annoying. It's looking like they will have to be cut. So we've got grey wire going there, orange wire going there. Should be able to see those. I think if we undo those, undo that ground wire, quite tight. I'm hoping I can flip the board backwards and do that. There's a motor wire. That's kind of annoying. I think it might just give me enough. Just give me enough room to get around. We've got this plastic plate in the way. of the flywheel assembly. I'm only seeing one belt on the back. I wonder if there's either more belts on the front or it's all just idler tyres. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws by the looks of it to get the tape transport out. Let's take this plastic framework off. Underneath there's a metal bracket as well. You see just under there with a screw at the top and a screw at the side that we'll have to loosen to get the belt off. So it's a flat belt, if I've not mentioned already. It's a flat belt that the capstan uses. It feels a bit dry. I think I may have some flat belts that I could replace that with, because it does feel a bit crappy, to be honest. Of course we've got the counter belt, but I think the rest of it, I've seen a lot of this brown grease around everywhere as well. This is going to be kind of gross to handle, I think. The rest of it, I think, is probably, as I say, idler tyres. So brassy coloured screw there for the top of the tape transport, and then another awkward one to get to here on the opposite side. I think I'm going to have to do the same here. I'm going to have to cut the speaker wires. So we've got a blue wire and a black wire. Don't drop my cutters. Just to give me enough room. I'll have to resolder those. I think I'm going to have to take this headphone socket out as well. Yep. Yeah, see, I'm already getting that grease all over me, but yeah, really simple. We've just got an idler tyre there, and yeah, just 2 belts, one for the counter, one for the capstan. Just scrape that out of the top of the buttons. Delicious. Slight concern, that's come off the capstan. The capstan not only looks really dirty, but it almost looks rusted to me. There's some really odd black corrosion on it. There is no front washer on the capstan. The back thrust plate is sprung. There's a spring just under here, if you can see there, and I think there's that screw there, and I think there's one screw on the side, which is, there's also another spring kind of going in this direction coming off this bracket. So there's a little bit of play in it. That's right, there should be a little bit of play. I'm going to try and get that back by, hopefully just by the feel of it, when I put this back together, because I'm not sure the screw will have, well, that's quite long as well, long machine screw for the top bit. I'm not sure, I have to get that spring out as well, that this screw is going to have a very sort of definite end stop. It might be kind of variable to set a tension, so I'm going to pop those in the jar. And I think there's a slotted screw at the side, that one. I think they're possibly the only 2. That hold this bracket in. Don't ask me why that's a slotted screw. It's a bit weird to see. Yeah. Okay, so that's loosed in the bracket. I think there might be a washer under that as well. There is. So there's a tiny washer on that screw. There's also this slotted screw on the side, which I think holds this side bracket, which I think I just have to loosen I don't think I have to fully remove. That's it, just get that clear. And there's a spring attached there, so I'm just going to set that aside. Ah, yeah, I can feel the grit on it when I lift it out. So yeah, you can see there it's all black and kind of grainy feeling. Just going to try a bit of Brasso wadding. Yeah, I think we've got away with this, it's coming off. So if there's lumps and bumps and all sorts of rubbish on that, it's only a very small surface area, so as it rolls the tape by, if it can't roll it evenly, the tape will bump around and skew. It will be pushed up against the guides and then it will fold over, and that's what causes the tape to get crinkled. Cleanliness is absolutely key with capstans. Don't know how people let them get in such a bad state, other than not looking, I guess. I think that will be fine. Oh, the picture is juddering. That's because my washing machine's on. Oh, we've hit equilibrium. We're all good. Yeah, I think that that should be all right. Right, I've put a drop of oil in the bearing and just drop that back in. It all seems fine now. I think I've found a belt that will fit. I'm not sure if that was out of a Hitachi kit or something that wasn't used, but the width seems right. Seems a decent quality belt. It definitely feels better than the old one. I've cleaned the pulleys. I'll try and be careful as I do this that I don't, because this brown grease is all over the place. Not sure I've got none on me. I don't get that on the belt. In fact, I can see a big smudge of dust actually in there. So we can get this into place then. That feels alright to me. One end of the spring is slightly wider and it sort of sits in a little channel. I've got the wrong bit on, haven't I? Think about where it was in terms of thrust. Cool, well, that's one job done. See if I can tip this round enough. Get this counterbelt out. Let's give this tape path a clean, and then I need to look at this assembly here. Some muck in that as well, because this has got a rubber idler tyre on it that's probably not so great. So we've got a serrated plastic wheel here that that presses against, I guess, for fast forward. I wonder if that's used as a clutch for playback, because you can see the clutch spring on the front there, so that might get used for play. Then that might actually press down to engage the gears for fast forward and rewind, potentially. Anyway, we'll come to that, but that's clean. A little bit of muck on the head, it's not too bad. The pinch roller looks pretty clean. Little tension arm there for the auto stop mechanism. It's a bit grimy. A little bit of platinum clean might revive it. There's definitely a lot of crap coming off the top surface. Let's see if I can clean the outside edge of this pulley up. I've cleaned up quite a lot of the fluff. I can still see a couple of bits, but yeah, I've cleaned a lot of that out. I just got some GT85 on a cotton bud and just sort of cleaned around a lot of that, just so I'm not completely removing the grease. I've fitted that belt. I've fitted a counter belt, which is a lot thinner than the original. It's not a great belt, but for a counter on a basic deck like that, it will be more than sufficient. It does work. I've cleaned the the pinch roller. I've cleaned the idler tire I should say, in the middle, and yeah, it does, as I mentioned earlier, thinking that the gearing drives the fast forward. I think that's rewind. I don't know if you can see the I think that's fast forward. You can see that moving in, and it does mesh those two gears together. So what gives it the fast forward and rewind tension is that belt on the back. It's using essentially the capstan belt, which is why it's a flat belt, to maximize the surface area. They're using that to give it the tension, and the clutch on top, of course, will stop it from ripping the tape off the end of the hub. And when you hit rewind, it presses against that one, and again it's a gear driven exchange. So that should rewind and fast forward much better now it's got that belt on there. And as I say, I've cleaned the outside of that pulley, done this with some rubber restorer, so it certainly won't be any worse. It's not brilliant, but it seemed to have reasonable take-up torque on playback before, so it can only be better now really. Again, I think for a basic deck like this, I think it will be sufficient. All the controls have been through, the buttons that were loose I should say, have been through the ultrasonic cleaner. Oh, they're in the other room actually, except for the broken play button. I've got to try and figure a way to do this gluing, and this is not going to be easy. I've got to think about how to do this, because gluing that back onto there is kind of mid-air. There's not really any way to support it as it's set, you know, as it's put in and glued in. It's just going to flop one way or the other. So I've got to have a think about how I'm going to do that. I might have to make some sort of shim that goes in the middle that I can wrap probably greaseproof paper around so that the glue doesn't bind to it. And then once it's glued, if the gluing works, it's making sure that it will withstand the pressure against it when it's pushed back onto the shaft there. So it might need some sort of support on the outside. What is making my camera shake again? Maybe this time my neighbour upstairs has got their washing machine on. It was just shaky camera today. Let's see if we can have a day without wobbly cameras. So the machine is hooked up to my bench power supply. We've got a 12 volt input coming in just here. I had to read these very carefully to note that the little round peg there is the positive and the blade peg is the negative. On every other Hitachi I've done so far, if they've got two different style pegs, they've been the other way around. So it's a good job I didn't flip that over. So yeah, it's a 12 volt machine. This is currently in play. I did put a drop of oil in the motor and it did get the current draw down a little bit. I have to make sure that this belt runs central, because if you knock it, it will run on the rim of that pulley. It won't run central. It's a weird pulley, that, because it's kind of got a profiled side in it like that. It's not just a flat sort of inside point in that pulley. It's a bit weird. But yeah, I've got it in play. I've got just that same tape on the back of it, and it all seems fine. The motor's a little bit noisy. I think it's the back bearing on the motor. It might just be because I've got it upside down. I think this has had a lot of hours, definitely judging by the head wear. I think this has had a lot of use. So yeah, I think that back bearing will be a little bit grumbly. Without completely disassembling, breaking up the motor and everything to try and get to that, I'm not going to make any difference on that. It's not worth doing on this machine. As the owner's got lots of machines and this is not going to be a priority one. The point was just to clean them up, as I keep reiterating. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm just going to make it work. And yeah, now that it's been cleaned and the rubber's been conditioned, again, it's still not the greatest condition pinch roller in the world, but it doesn't seem to have a problem now playing the beginning of a tape. I've watched it with the torch and the tape's running true. I did just tweak the screw a little bit on the thrust plate here, just to get that without too much play in it. I've read in another one of the manuals, 1 or 2 manuals, they say you hook it up to a bench power supply and you adjust the screw to the point where it starts to draw more current, and then you just back it off a little bit, and then that's about set right. So I think that should be fine. So I've got to look at this play button, and I think what I'm going to try and do is fold up a little piece of greaseproof paper and pop it into that slot, if I can get it flat enough, and hopefully that will give me a surface to maybe tape up or clamp. Oh, and also didn't mention the rewind and fast forward, yeah, way better. So it was well worth changing that to that belt. An attempt was made to glue it, and sure enough, it didn't really work out, but you'll notice it's attached. So what happened was I managed to sort of glue the piece on, but the break wasn't very clean, so it was never going to sit fully sort of flush. So I had a feeling that even if I get the glue joint to stabilize, it will snap as soon as I try and push it onto the play button. That's exactly what happened, but it actually snapped a piece of it off and left a little piece of it glued on, so one edge formed a new break. That was actually just enough to push it back onto the stem and it would stabilize, and then I've managed to sort of just get it into place, and I've just super glued it to the actual stem. We're never going to want to take these off, so I know it's a bit of a bodge, but I think it just might work. I have this propped up at the back at the minute. The power's on from the bench power supply. The deck is fixed back in. The board is just pushed back in while I've been cleaning switches and cleaning all the top of this and these pots, the left and right volume and the tone pot and everything. I have a tape in, but I have the door open because I was watching something in the mechanism which I'll zoom in on shortly. It's to do with the auto stop. I got this playing just through the headphones because obviously I cut the wires for the speakers. I can't solder those back in until the board is finally fixed in place, or just before rather the board is just fixed in place, because I can't move the board around if those wires are soldered in. So I'm using the headphone output just to test. I put the scrapper tape through it and ran it. This switch, the source selector switch, was terrible, and even after cleaning it was dropping channels in and out, it was squealing and popping. It was really crappy, and I cleaned it again. I left it for a while and now it's fine. So I've mentioned this in videos before, I'm a firm believer that the contact cleaner mostly works when you hit it for the first time, but I find it's more effective if you leave it to work its way in and dry out and sometimes hit it a second time. Then all of a sudden it's fine. But yeah, it was really hit and miss, this switch, and now it seems to be okay. I did put a little bit of deoxit in there as well, and again just left it, and now it seems to be behaving. The tape deck was making some slight buzzing noises when I touched it, and then I remembered I've not reconnected that ground strap. Again, that will be the last thing I do, because when they're bolted in I can't move it all around. Anyway, this auto stop feature, it didn't seem to be doing it, and now all of a sudden I've got it to work and I remembered how it works. Let me zoom in on the part in question and explain. So if you look right in the center of the screen, you can hopefully see, if I put the play on, there's a little white peg there that pops down, and that monitors the tape tension. So when the tape runs out, as it's just about to do, the tape will pull tight on that and lift it up, and that will trigger the auto stop when it's playing. See that? So that little white tab knocks a lever on the back that catches on a little sticky out peg on the flywheel, and that knocks the latch that holds the buttons down, so it makes it undo the play button, it makes it stop. If I've explained that very well, I don't know, but that's what that's there for. It comes with a slight caveat. Watch what happens when I press rewind, or fast forward even. It doesn't come down. It's not supposed to come down. So if I fast forward and get to the end, There's no auto stop. There's no auto stop in rewind or fast forward, even though auto stop mechanism is emblazoned across the front. The auto stop only works in play and I guess record. So that's a bit of a point deducted really, but it confused me for about an hour, thinking what's wrong with the auto stop mechanism. It actually didn't work even in play, and it took a little bit of finagling to just sort of loosen it up and get it to work. But beware of those little pop down levers that measure tape tension for auto stop mechanisms. Some players have that pop down in fast forward and rewind. I think some of the Hitachi mechanisms do. This one doesn't, and it caught me out. So I put it back together and I put all the switches on except for this one. No, your eyes don't deceive you, it's copper. Why is that copper when all the others are silver or chrome, I guess? Well, this is the one where the aluminium deposit off the top, which makes it silver, was half flaked off, and when I put this through the ultrasonic cleaner, more of it started to flake off. So for some reason this one has worn worse than the rest. The bit of copper that was exposed was tarnished, and the same thing had happened to the actual tops of the grip there. So they've been polished with some Brasso, and then it's been cleaned with isopropanol. I'm going to paint this one. I'm going to do it with chrome spray paint, and then I'm going to clear coat it. I haven't got any clear coat, so I'm going to have to go and buy some. But I've got the remainder of the aluminium off by using duct tape or gaffer tape. Stuck it on there and pulled it off, and apart from the bit in the groove in there, which will be fine, it got all the loose stuff off, so that should be alright to paint. But I'll have to clear coat it because my experience that chrome paint is useless if you touch it, so it needs a clear coat on afterwards. So I'm going to paint that today, leave it to dry overnight, I'm going to get some clear coat in the morning and clear coat it tomorrow. We're nearly there. Speakers are soldered back in. Again, I've put a couple of tapes through it and just sort of roughly brought in the alignment. I'm not going to go any further with it, the reason being it's really slow. The tape speed is really slow. I mean, sort of musically, I'm not saying it's like half speed, but it's running flat. Let me just turn the volume down. If I play it, I don't know how much that's coming across on the mic, but that motor is quite noisy. It's not adjustable. The speed is not adjustable. There is no adjustment on these at all, even for like bias or tape record level, playback level. There's nothing. Loads of adjustment for the radio, nothing, diddly squat for the tape deck. They're very, very basic. It's trying to look the part, but it's a really simple Samsung grade machine, to be honest. It's not a patch on the other one. Even things like this sort of wide sort of tuner band looks really nice, but only that much of it is actually the tuner. When you kind of look closely, you go, oh, there's metal on the front, great. Yeah, I don't know if this would even record a metal tape, I'm really not sure, but it'll play one back. I mean, anything will play a metal tape back. But yeah, I think I'm just going to kind of finish this off really and button it up and call it a day, because that motor speed I can do nothing with. Every one of these non-adjustable Hitachis I've done so far has been pretty on speed, it's been fine. But this one, it's probably the back bearing on the motor that's well worn. I just think it's high hour. It sounds okay. I think it'll sound better as a radio. Again, not losing any sleep over it because the owner's got far better players in his collection. This is just one he liked the look of. But I think the other machine that I've done in this video, far superior, much more solid machine and just much nicer to use. Okay, I'm going to illustrate the point here that where I am now is really poor for radio reception. It's not a fault of this. This is actually doing really well to pull in weak stations, and it is on stereo, so we're going to get a lot of the stereo noise. But just to do a sort of quick FM band sweep, it sounds great, but most of the stations that this is picking in from where it is are not even barely pegging the signal strength meter. which again I don't think it's a fault of the signal strength meter, it's just very, very congested where we are for radio noise. If my 3D printer's on, which it's not at the moment, then that absolutely obliterates the airwaves with noise from the high current drivers in the stepper motors. So anytime I've ever got the 3D printer on, I cannot run FM radio stuff or test radios at all. So when it does pick in the station, it's very good, but I'm in a very difficult area for demonstrating radio. The owner of this is in a much better area because he's higher up than where I live, so it just sort of shows you FM radio is getting harder and harder to work the way it used to, because it's such a different world now. We have different priorities and different stuff going on in the airwaves that in certain areas it can be a bit tricky. But if I'm to flick it to cassette, that's all working brilliantly. Really happy with this unit. As I've attested to earlier in the video, really impressed with the build quality. I highly recommend this model if you can find one and you fancy doing it up, or you want it done up by someone. Yeah, I highly recommend this model. Really impressed with the way it's built, and its feature set really for a sort of mid-70s machine. As I said earlier, the only thing it doesn't have is soft eject. It doesn't have a line in exactly. It's got this, I haven't tested it, it's got this mixing input which you might be able to use as a line in. I haven't actually tried it. It doesn't have a line in position on the function selector. So that's one thing it's maybe missing if you're thinking of a Bluetooth mod or whatever. There's ways and means to do that, to hack into the radio circuitry and stuff, but it's a bit more invasive. So it's probably not the best one if you're thinking you want to plug things into it, but to run it as a radio if you're in a good area, it's lovely. Yeah, just really nice to interact with. Controls all feel great, really solid build, and really good looking if you like that style. Really happy with that overall. Let's have a look at the other one. So let's again do a band sweep on this one. Stereo's definitely working. The stereo pilot's picking up really well. I do like the red level meter on this one. It's a lot like Sharp's had around that time as well. I think the 8989 Sharp, one that comes to mind, had a level meter a lot like that. Quite like the old red LEDs. The stereo is very wide on it, as it is on the other one. I think they've got kind of a built-in widener circuit. So they do have a good wide sound in FM stereo again when you've got a good reception. I will say one thing for this unit: the volume is barely on and it's more than audible. This thing goes loud. I mean, this has got a 12-volt power supply in it. You'd expect something of this size to be sort of 9 volts or so, but this has got a full 12-volt power supply. It does kind of distort a bit when the volume's pushed sort of halfway or further, but it's really loud at that point. So yeah, it is surprisingly loud. Can you tell the pitch difference? How slow that is. So it functions. It functions, but playing tapes is never going to be its strength because that motor is very, very well used. I will say, in its defence, it's obviously been used nearly to death by someone who obviously enjoyed using it that much. But I don't think without kind of breaking into that motor, which is more than is warranted on this repair, I don't think without breaking into that motor, we may find a control circuit inside that motor. In fact, we would find some kind of regulation. Maybe something there is out of calibration, out of spec. But unfortunately, it's just not worth it to go that far with this machine. If it was the owner's only machine, then I would probably go that far with it. I will also point out, I'll have to include a photo here, the function switch that I attempted to paint, it didn't work out. once I got the clear coat on it, it felt great, but as soon as my nail caught it, it immediately chipped off. So again, that Humbrol paint that I've tried before, just it doesn't stick very well. It's alright for decorative things, but anything you've got to handle, even under clear coat, it's just not very good. I actually ended up 3D printing a grey one that roughly matches the silver of the front. Again, I'd have gone a little bit further on a more advanced repair, but this was just enough to get it by. I included a photo of that little 3D printed switch, which does function perfectly. The switches don't have a great feel on this, to be honest. They're a bit stiff and clunky, not as good as the other machines I pointed out, but it's not built as well as the other machine. It's more budget conscious, but even so, it goes loud, it works, the radio will be fine. We've fulfilled the objective of clean it up and make it work. So for anyone who's got one of these models out, if you want to do one up or get one or whatever, hopefully that might have been some help to you. For anyone who just likes watching them, thanks for watching, and overall, yeah, thanks for watching.